Welcome to the first ever AFA Genxt podcast. My name is Ashley Mahadia, the New South Wales Chair for the Genxt Community of Practice and your host for this episode. Before we begin, I want to say a big thank you to the AFA for allowing us to host this podcast and give a voice to the new generation of financial advisors. A huge shout out to our supporting partner, Advice Intelligence, for powering this podcast. The role of the financial advisor is forever evolving, and the aim of this episode is to equip you with tips and tricks to enhance your emotional connection with your clients. In today's episode, we want to focus on behavioral money coaching and how it can help your clients uncover and achieve their financial goals. Our guests today are Amie Baker, financial advisor and certified money coach at Recap Advice, Cara Mollica, certified money coach from Savvy Wealth, and Jacqui Henderson, CEO of Advice Intelligence and Goals-Based Advice Advocate. A massive thank you to these incredible women who discuss how you can create more value for your clients and improve your conversations and relationships with them. Amie, Cara and Jacqui, welcome to the first ever Genxt podcast. So glad to have you as our first guest.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yes, thank you for having us,
Great
Ash.
to be here.
Yeah. Very exciting.
Let's get straight into it. Amie and Cara, what is behavioral money coaching and how does it enhance your client's experience? We'll start with Cara.
So behavioural money coaching is around understanding your beliefs, thoughts, patterns around money, where they've come from, what events have happened for those beliefs to form over time, how to release them, and then ultimately how to create a new financial reality. So this allows you to get so much more clarity on your vision and your goals and what it is that you're trying to achieve. And ultimately, then you're able to help your customer achieve those goals so much more efficiently and quicker.
100%. You said that so beautifully. I guess to add to what we do as advisors, speaking of goals, often, and we're saying this in our conversation before, advisors get frustrated after a year of review to find the client actually hasn't really moved forward in terms of what they say they want to do. And often I in my experience and now doing the money coaching and integrating that into my advice process, it's because they really haven't been aware of what their real goals are. So the money coaching process does take you sort of back all the way to your early past, your childhood. So we sort of really unlock what's going on in the subconscious. And by doing that, we can then move forward. And once you really understand where you come from and what's actually stopped you, blocked you, we're talking about energy there, we can actually then really, I guess, shed light on the true values and true goals and also change the narrative, because often there's a lot of fear or,
Anxiety, stress, burden around money.
Absolutely. And that's all come from experience in the past. And sometimes we can't always pinpoint what that is until we really unravel the past and some of those stories. And as a money coach, and you'll find this, we do come across the language that they constantly are telling themselves.
Which very disempowering.
It can be very negative.
Very negative. Yeah, absolutely. And it's 95% of the time we're operating from our subconscious mind. So unless we actually go back and identify what money beliefs we have in our subconscious, then it's really challenging for us to move forward. So it's really all about, first of all, awareness and understanding that, and a belief is formed from either a significant emotional event or repetition. So we then need to overwrite that, release that belief so you can choose whether, you want to hold on to that moving forward or you want to create a different belief, a new, more empowering belief.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Yeah, I mean, you've got language that was programmed from our childhood, money doesn't grow on trees and those sorts of sayings that actually play out in our adulthood and how we actually have a relationship with money. So it's really changing that money doesn't grow on trees, paraphrasing that's internal to something that's money is more abundant and money does grow on trees, and I can, overcome that negative thought patterns that have been created and really turn those into new neural pathways of new thoughts and behaviours. And yeah,
For sure.
Yeah.
One that I often see with my clients as well is this inner conflict around being able to have success and wealth and also have relationships and a family, and that you can't have both. It's really, really common amongst women where there's this fear that, you know, in order to have money, I have to work really, really hard and I have to sacrifice other things.
And then suffer guilt on the other side.
There's guilt and there's shame and fear around that. And so it's really, like you say, rewiring those neural pathways to believe that it is possible to have it all. And we can have it all. You know, that's going to be different for everybody. Success looks different to different people. But whatever that means to you, it's totally possible.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm agreeing with you both on this. I just love this topic. So I'm not going to add any more to that one.
Thank you. This was so interesting. Amie, you're both a financial advisor and a certified money coach. I want to understand, how does behavioral money coaching tie in with advice, especially goals-based advice?
Well, I find it actually makes the process quite magical, to be honest with you, because when you do uncover what someone's true goals and values are, they are more likely going to stick to that. They can see they've got the vision. When they've changed some of their narrative, they're actually more positive. They've sort of got a different perspective to their relationship with money. It opens up so many more opportunities. As an advisor, you know, we have to do a risk analysis and work out, you know, what their risk appetite is. We can really uncover that also through the money coaching process by understanding someone's past and experiences and even trauma from their childhood, and what actually subconsciously has had them make the decisions in their lives that they've made. We can actually start to see why they have the potential risk appetite that they're experiencing, which could potentially hinder some of their goals. But when we actually really uncover all of that, it changes the whole game. So it does work beautifully hand in hand. And I think we can all agree that the money coaching process is really all about building the relationship with the client and building this incredible amount of trust. So by bringing that into my business, it definitely adds another element, another positive layer to the actual outcome. And we're going to talk about that with that, you know, the concept of goals-based advice. It sort of just goes hand in hand. One almost doesn't exist without the other.
Yeah, it's what's actually meaningful and tangible to the actual end client. It's not about, I'm coming to see an advisor to, you know, look at how I can outperform a market by a percentage, because you're coming to see how you can send your kids to private school or buy my first home. And there's so many emotional elements that sit behind those important life stages and life events that you want to create in your future, and being able to, you know, tie that back into the behaviour, because the blockers that we see in people achieving their goals and life aspirations are these, you know, traits, these behavioural patterns. Even with investing decisions, of aligning in our investment decisions to our own values, so understanding our own money values and money beliefs, and aligning that, like, you know, someone being more ethical, so I want to align my values to more ethical based investing. So yeah, that alignment, it is all hand in hand, because the only way that you're going to achieve your goals is to look at the behaviour blocks that are blocking you for achieving those, and, you know, really to enhance, you know, and unlock that and help, take those steps towards achieving those and having a better life and outcome.
Often people don't know what those blocks are until you go back. It's in the subconscious. So we'll just quickly talk about that. The subconscious is developed from a very early age, and really basically it's out the foundations of our childhood. So it's from around, you know, 0 till about 12 years old. So we're subconsciously making money decisions like a child. And until we have that awareness of these decision-making skills that we've basically carried with us, and my own personal story was really up and down. One minute, you know, my dad had a thriving business that was going international. Next thing, Mum and Dad got divorced, and I'd be walking through Grace Brothers and Mum would be like, no, we can't afford it. And I was like, hang on a minute. Only a year ago we were in Umea. Hang on, what happened? And I was a child. So, you know, there was abundance and then there was nothing. And it was like, bang, it was very confusing. And I use that as an example because you see that with people, and you see that like by looking, the numbers don't lie. You see that with looking at bank accounts. You look at my past before I did this work on myself, there was, 1 minute everything's amazing and flash, and then all of a sudden something would happen, a trigger would occur, and, everything kind of would stop. I'd make really poor decisions. I would be sort of the deer in the headlights, so to speak, when it came to making positive, correct decisions. And the good thing is I became aware of why I was doing that. A lot of people will go, I really want to get that first home, but I can't save. Something's holding them back. Why can't you save? Why is it that every time money comes into your life, you go crazy and spend it? What's the behaviour here, and what's the pattern? What's happened before in your childhood that actually has created this constant pattern that you want to get rid of? And that's sort of the beauty and power of this work, is really being able to unlock some of these blockages to go, yes, you know what, you can have that house, and you will have that house, and you will have the cake and eat it too, because you can have an investment portfolio, clear debt, and buy a property, because we're going to show you there's processes in place. But because you're going to have the right mindset, you'll know it's possible.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly.
Perfectly.
Love it. Love it.
I went on a massive rant.
That's all good. Just to add to that, as well as with money coaching, it really helps your client build trust and confidence within themselves. Once you build trust, you build confidence, they increase their own self-belief, then they show up differently. Different opportunities show up for them. They're able to attract more money, and they feel like they deserve and are worthy of what it is that they're trying to achieve after overcoming those blocks. So it makes your job as an advisor so much more enjoyable because your plan is actually coming to fruition, as opposed to kind of hitting your head against a brick wall thinking, why aren't they following this plan? It's going to get them to their goals. So.
Yeah, your thoughts become your reality, and what you think you attract. So
It's absolutely true. So changing that negative narrative to a positive narrative is imperative to have the success that we want for our clients, but for our clients to actually achieve. And that's the power of the money coaching right there.
I think that's a very good point. I want to understand more how money coaching and goals-based advice help you or help your clients to uncover their goals and really understand what they want to achieve in life. Because most people that I speak to, when you ask them what their goals are, sometimes they don't even know, right? Or we would just tell you something like buy a car and say, is that really what you want to achieve? And when you go deep, that's when they give you the real answers. So how do you use money coaching and goals-based advice to uncover those goals?
First of all, I often question the concept of goals and values, because they really go hand in hand. If it's not a true value, the goal is not going to be a success. So by doing the money coaching, we really understand what really motivates somebody. By the process of going back to the past to really get them to propel into their future is so important, because when we understand someone's past, we can understand some of their, experiences, but the relationships that they've forged through their life and what's important to them. And they start telling the story. They're telling you during that process, all I'm doing is listening and I'm taking it in. But by doing that, we're uncovering the true values. When we see the true values, we understand that the importance is security, or the importance is family, or the importance is adventure, then we can build something around that. That's when we go, right, so the goal is this, versus someone coming and sitting down and going, okay, mum and dad really want me to get a property because that's where its financial security lies. But that might not have anything to do with what makes them tick. So goals-based advice really does work well with this process. And I think the first thing is finding the true value to then go, there's the goal. Because until you know what makes you tick and what's really going to, create that fire in your belly, it's not going to work.
Yeah. And then also the behaviour that sits behind it, because you've got, the values, and then you've got the behaviour and the belief system as well that's ingrained in the person. So understanding like the motivation system, they could be a toward person where they're going towards their goals, or they could be an away from person where they're always afraid and have fear around their goals, and so it's really understanding that behaviour so you can actually work with the actual behaviour that is the blocker. So, working with someone that's, already motivated is, relatively easy versus someone that's not. They fear their goals. So it's changing that, fears into something that's positive so that they can move forward, and they've got a different motivation system.
That's why language is incredibly important. So one of the things that we do in our process is, of course, listening, and that's an incredible skill that we all in this industry need to have. But when we're listening as a coach, as a money coach, we're hearing the story, the narrative that either can be this constant negative pattern, or it's a fearful pattern, or it's full of anxiety, or it could even be full of disgust when it comes to money. So recently I had a client that had this sort of constant language around feeling ugly and gross around money. And it's when you start hearing the language, you've got to remind them, hey, do you hear what you're doing? And that's when you're dealing with someone, say, that is away from their goals. That's a great way of bringing them forward and actually becoming aware that that's the sabotage. Their language is holding them back. Their belief system's holding them back. And once they realize that can be easily fixed, it just is a whole game changer. And that's sort of the most beautiful thing to see. Someone, isn't it, just transform?
It's so transformational in that respect. And the other language is looking out for when they will say things like, I always, or I never, or it's really difficult for me all the time. And that's just ingrained in their subconscious. And until, like you say, you change that language, which also doesn't happen overnight, because if we think about this, we've had 20, 30, 40, 50 years of this repetition in our minds. We do need to give it the time and consistency to be able to override these patterns as well.
Yeah, just like a girlfriend overseas, Michelle Hoskins, she often does Little Miss Wow. She does a lot of the conferences. She's always encouraging us advisors to go and seek advice. And I'm at that point of go and seek a money coach. I go and seek a money coach. I get on the phone and go, hey, I recognize I'm doing this. This isn't, this is frustrating. And, it takes time to find the right person you want to work with, like an advisor, because this is your life. It's a very personal experience. And when you are going through this, like advice, it's an ongoing relationship. So it's not a set and forget. I've increased the amount of reviews I do for my financial planning clients. They're kind of sort of thrown into the money coaching process as, part of my offer, as opposed to me going, here's money coaching, here's financial advising. We've got two, sort of packages that I offer. And I said, you either see me quarterly or we're going to see a couple of times a year. It's phone calls. It's me checking in, because we do need to remind constantly keep on track. So that's sort of where the word coach comes in, as opposed to just, here's a piece of advice, see ya. That's not exactly how it works. And our industry's moved from that kind of model anyway. So it's really lovely to integrate, constantly checking in with ourselves. Like we all fall over, because the subconscious is a very stiff space. It's not very pliable. We've got to really give it a good shake up to make these positive changes.
Well, it's very similar to, I went on the journey of building our technology platform on that very, basis, because we need to be able to track our advice that we're providing clients towards their goals and life aspirations. And there was no, technology or tools that actually helped advisors to be able to do that. So that was really important in, us developing a philosophy, but also methodology around goals-based advice and how you have a goals conversation with the client, but then also the tech that's going to support that experience, that actually keeps them on track from achieving their goals. So their spending habits are in the system. They can see, what they're spending, if they're overspending on, lifestyle or entertainment or whatever, that you can nail that behaviour and go, spending too much, we got to look at your spending habits as well. And this is preventing you from, achieving your goals, or you're spending too much or getting into too much debt. This is actually the blockers. Why are you actually getting yourself into debt? So what's the behaviour supporting that? So we wanted to tie the behavioural aspect, which is why we've developed, behaviour profiling within the technology, but also that it's, developing the strategies that help them to achieving their goals and keeps them on track. And it helps the whole review process so that, you're looking really at the goals as the outcome. Okay, have we helped you achieve your goals? What's your achievability? Is it, 20%? Oh, let's do a bunch of strategies that help you. Now it's 80%. And now let's make sure it keeps getting over and above that 80%. So it's the tech that's also supporting the actual behavioural aspects and the conversation and the whole advice experience. So
this is the perfect segment into my next question, Jacqui. What are the top 3 limiting beliefs that stop people from achieving their goals?
Well, I think there's a number of behaviours that certainly stop people from achieving their goals, like I'd spoken before around, their motivation system or other behaviours that have been, part of their ingrained in the way in which they think and behave. So I think, there's a plethora of different limiting beliefs that we all have, and to go into that's pretty deep.
It would be deep. We'd be here for a good
We'd be here for ages. A deep psychological profile of the person.
Yeah, there's a lot there's all sorts of things. Look, I can say commonly, there's fear, there's stress, there's anxiety is another one.
Stress, fear and anxiety, definitely.
They're probably the top 3 that I could think of from the top of my head. But then, usually you scratch the layer, there's something else that's going on underneath that that's causing that. Then there's something else and something else. So it's really going back down to the foundations and then working from there. And the other thing we haven't brought up is because this is such deep work, and sometimes there's a lot of emotions and riding on it. Money is energetic. We've spoken about that, and it's part of every aspect of our lives. But where that is often can cause a lot of emotions. It can cause marriage breakups. It can cause, people doing really crazy crazy things. And I won't even go into that because that can be another long session. But the point is, we've got to recognise when someone is also really struggling with their mental health over this, or that we can't actually fully dig all this information out. So I have and will continue referring clients to either see a kinesiologist, hypnotherapist or psychologist, depending on what kind of therapies they're open to. And we just have to, it's all about holding space for people and being aware that it is a very, very personal experience that they're going through. Always reminding them that the idea is actually to make some really positive changes to get them to achieve some amazing things and live their best life.
And it's really challenging for the individual when they're going through that. Like when you're in the midst of it, it's painful and it's difficult, and, you're reliving trauma. And so it's really about, being kind and holding the space, like Amie said, for them during that process.
Yeah. I have to say, when I went through the first
we went through it together.
So I went through the process, and I hope this doesn't scare anyone off, but it is very emotional. And we all broke down and cried and shared that experience together.
Such a powerful, powerful experience to go through together.
But when you're there with a client one-on-one, it is important to be really listening, being very attentive, and hold that space and know that, they're not alone. We've all had our challenges with money. Money's not going to go anywhere. We can't put our head in the sand. We can't hope that someone's going to rescue us. One of the things that I've experienced, I work with a lot of women, and professional women that you go, they're so smart, but somewhere in there they still think that there's this knight, this knight in shining armor is going to come in, rescue them, and they can give up work and have babies. And I just want to bang my head against the,
But that's what's been ingrained in the female ideology.
Correct, and it's not just
expectation.
This is where it goes deeper than just your own childhood experiences. This goes from mum to grandma and on and on and on.
Housewives. Exactly.
Very deep.
So anyway, that's another episode again. I mean, probably do.
Well, that's the thing. Money is the currency for life, and money is our energy. We create it through putting energy into what we do, and we receive the money back, and then we put it out again in terms of buying and consuming, and it's that energetic relationship as well that's very important with money, because that can also be a block, like that energetic block between you receiving money, and that plays out as well, and that's a very deep
I do
a topic that we may not go into, but
I do the money coaching with business coaching. So I'm a certified archetype business coach. So it's the same kind of work, but in a different sort of setting with business. And there's always, in an organisation, it's all about relationships and culture and everything. So it's quite interesting, because there's always someone that actually can hold an organisation back, like we in our own sort of personalities.
Absolutely.
And I do use archetypes to remind people that we have these behaviours and we can label them. And if you recognise that you're being that, then at least I actually sort of liken it to having your good angel and bad angel. And you've got your warrior, and you've got your magician, and you've got your victim, and you've got your martyr. And being a mother, the martyrs constantly come out. Constantly. That's my battle. I'm always fighting my martyr, and I'm always fighting my victim, so that I can actually just stand in my true, power of being the warrior and whatnot. So I brought that up in terms of archetypes, because that's another tool that you can use to remind people of behaviours.
That was amazing. Last question for today. I love the idea of integrating money coaching into financial advice, because I think they go hand in hand. To help the young generation of advisors listening to us today, what are the most important soft skills advisors need to have to start approaching advice this way?
Listening is number one. Like, really, I can't push it any further. Asking the right questions. Really, we have a fact find, but it's incredibly dry. Fact find's just the financials. I honestly do get my clients to send me copies of their statements via, just through an Excel spreadsheet. I'd rather capture their spending that way. I get a letter of authority, and I ask for, I do a lot of fact finding behind the scenes for them, because I want to sit there in that meeting and really understand what is important. And by doing that is asking the right questions, but listening to the answers.
Make it more interactive too. We've designed an interactive discovery that has a goals planner, and it starts off with that, not asking about how much money you have, how much is in your super. It's actually asking what is it that motivates you? Like, what are you trying to achieve? What are your life aspirations?
One question I love asking is, if money was not an issue, what would you be doing, where would you be, and who would you be with? Because it really just opens up the opportunity to not be restricted by what you think you can have. If money's not an issue, would you be doing the work that you're doing? Would you be doing something differently? Would you live where you live? And I think last year has really expanded that in a lot of people's minds as well, because the possibility of doing things differently is at the forefront of our minds. So really just asking different questions, and also the rule of 3. So ask a question and then ask why that's the answer, and usually, 3 or 4 down the track, you get to the real goal, the real answer to that question.
We hope you enjoyed the first episode of the Genxt podcast and took something away that you can implement in your practice. Another huge shout out to Amie, Cara and Jacqui for being our first guests and for their incredible insights. Thanks again to the AFA and our supporting partner, Vice Intelligence. See you next time.